Obama was voted, they have no idea. They just voted him for because he was black or he was a Democrat. People have no idea on what they're doing when it comes to voting. They just check a box and call it good.
Right. Now, Richard in the chat room asks a interesting question or makes a statement here. Says, I am still wanting to know why all the checks and balances got thrown out the window. Our founding fathers didn't want something like this happening, and they put checks and balances into place so it wouldn't.
But we're not dealing with the same people and the same ideals nowadays as when that was put into place. You know,
well, no.
What's happening is, I mean, this is just strictly, my opinion on the whole matter. Once again, this is something we did ourselves. I think part of the reason, or part of the solution that's going to help a lot of people is we have to admit to ourselves that we put ourselves where we are today. And part of that being, is because, like with the system of checks and balances, a lot of these things are overlooked. A lot of the, because the people were screaming about the one thing, the president, oh, well, I'm going to sign this executive order, which is going to help me bypass this, and it's the bipartisan, or isn't that the right word, where the favoritism goes along the party lines. That's what has caused us to get to where we are today. We bypass these things when they're convenient, and the people are okay with it when it benefits them. Now that it's starting to not benefit them, now it seems to be the problem, which is a good thing, but still we have to admit that we are the ones that got ourselves here.
Right. Well, yes, and I would agree. I would agree with that. Honestly, to specifically answer Richard's question, how all the checks and balances got thrown out the window. I honestly believe it was our legislative body, literally surrendering, our rights as a republic to the president. Slowly but surely, he gained more and more power than the founding fathers ever wanted one man to have.
Well, you can't just talk about just the president. Remember, there's a lot of power that I feel the Supreme Court has now that they never should have had.
Yeah, but that also comes back to the president as well, because as you know, Dino, the president actually appoints the Supreme Court justices.
Well, yes, I do understand this. You're absolutely right. But I'm just saying, in the systems of checks and balances, where you're kind of saying, like our president has too much power. But I think it goes, even to the Supreme Court. I don't think it was ever envisioned the Supreme Court to have as much power as they do on our citizens' daily life. They were, remember, we all learned this in high school, that it was the Jesus Christ, now I got to get thinking about this. The legislative branch that wrote the laws, the executive branch enforced the laws, and the judicial branch interpreted the laws. That's how it was set up to be. It's not that way anymore. You got the judicial branch making laws, and same thing with the executive branch.
Okay, but how's the judicial branch making laws?
Well, like I said, not so much making laws, but they're turning laws over. Many different cases, I don't feel that they should have had should have the power. Let me give you an example here. Something as simple as even Roe v. Wade. Even though a lot of people a lot of people are okay with that because it makes abortion illegal. But once again, I feel that that's the state's decision. It's not the Supreme Court decision. I know how it got there. I understand. I'm not going to pretend like I don't know. I do know how it got there, but I'm just saying, in my opinion, I don't think that was supposed to be that. Remember, they interpret the law. They're not supposed to rewrite it. And that's what's happening now. I mean, John Roberts, we can get into that a whole nother time.
Okay. In
the chat, I just want to bring this up real fast. In the chat, everybody, I've noticed someone was saying that Obama is a puppet, right?
Yeah, Uncle Bobby. He says the president is just a puppet. Welcome to the show there, Uncle Bobby.
And Chris, too, he just popped up in here. And, I will say this. It's not just Obama. President Bush was a puppet too. I mean, go back and look at some of that. And Bill Clinton, you can throw him in that mix too. You can go back and look at some of those interviews or off-air moments with the president, and he's just looking around for someone to tell him what the fuck to say. Sorry.
Right, but I honestly, I do believe it's more the executive branch I mean, it's the legislative branch allowing the executive branch to actually make laws now by way of executive order. And yes, we're complaining about this because it's Obama, but the reason we're doing this is because in just 3.5 years, Obama signed over 900 executive orders.
Well, yeah,
the most any U.S. president has ever signed.
But like I said, though, and
even George W. only signed 66.
But once again, though, we're here because, and it was pointed out here in the chat by Jesse. He says even Romney would have been the puppet, and I agree. We can't look at it like a lot of people are out there right now. I know you're mad at Obama, and I know you're screaming, saying he's the worst guy in the world. I understand. We have every reason and right to be there, but we also have to remember that just 4 years ago we had another president in Bush that was screwing things royally too. So this is where I'm always talking about with people: take the party lines out of it. Let's take that right out of it. Stop Republican and Democrat because they're both screwed up, and they're both screwing us pretty hard.
Right. Okay. I can agree with that, but I'm just saying it's Obama. I'm not saying Democrats or anything like that, because there are actually a lot of Democrats that are against Obama's policies. They think he's too far left, for their taste.
See, now, Richard brings up something in the chat, though, that is interesting. I was just talking about this with somebody the other day, and I think it's something we got to look into, too. He says you can't even be president unless you're rich. And now I pose this question to you guys. Do you think that was, the way it was meant to be? And what I mean by that is I was talking with someone the other day, and I think part of the problem that we have in politics nowadays is, being able to contribute to politicians. I hate the fact that elections cost what they do. Someone says you're not buying the election. Well, I need people to go over how much money was raised to get Obama into office, and where the fuck is that money now? And so tell me how he did not pay his way into there. You know what I'm saying? I know that's the way it's been done for a very long time, but I think that's part of the problem. That's how you get your lobbyists and all their fingers in there, and they have to have their little earmarks and this and that.
Okay. Sorry. JJ, go ahead. Do you want to answer that question?
Well, I agree with you.
Okay.
There's no doubt in my mind. I mean, you be rich, you got rich friends, they're going to help you get in there.
Well, what I was asking,
you're going to help them get tax breaks and whatever else that they need.
Do you think that was how it was originally meant to be? And anybody in the chat can answer this too.
No, I don't ever. You can't tell me way back in the 30s and 40s that this was going on.
30s and 40s?
Back when presidents were being elected back in those days. I mean, it wasn't all about money. I don't think the money thing came into equation until later on in life.
You talking about the 1930s? I mean, politicians were corrupt back then. I mean, they were just bribing them. I mean, you could do that.
It was a lot easier too. There's a lot of stories.
But if you're talking about when the Constitution was made, and was it ratified in 1781 or something like that, or 1787? I don't think they intended that. Only the rich could. But you got to remember, the people that wrote this document were among the richest of the colonists.
Well, yeah.
I'm talking about corporations the way it is now. I mean, these presidents now are already coming in from rich people. I mean, back in the day, they were not rich. They were bought off by corporations, but now they're being elected and they are rich, and other corporations are like, okay, what can you do for me? We'll send you some money your way, and you just help us out when you get into office.
Now, Jesse put something in the chat here. It says, you don't have to be rich. I mean, Abe Lincoln lived in a one-room log cabin. LOL. And when Lincoln was growing up, yes, he did live in a log cabin. He was self-educated, but eventually he became a lawyer.
And once again, we're also talking about, the 1860s and stuff. It's there was corruption and stuff back then, but I believe that the American dream at that point, if we will, where we're talking about the what's the origin of it, and if that was what it was meant to be, was still in effect back then. There was some corruption, but not as bad as now, as today. You would think, I know, like I was about to tell before, stories of back in early days before TV and before all this stuff, where politicians would literally send their group of minions into towns and pay off people for their vote. Literally, hey, you need that new plow for your horse, here you go, is this worth the vote? And that was happening, and now it's not as happening as blatant as that, but like JJ said, it's happening through the corporations. Like, hey, you want us to back you, what's in it for us once you're elected? And how could any president, in any way stay impartial to anything if the people who helped get him into office, they owe all these favors to? That's, like I said, that's the problem.
Well, and yes, records have been released that the Obama campaign, the biggest contributor was Goldman Sachs.
Which, I don't have all that
and
stuff.
A lot of Wall Street, too, by the way.
And
big financial banks.
I don't have a lot of that stuff in front of me, but it is a side of me that people are going to start to see throughout this show. One of the things that helped get me where I am today to realize that we need a movement, we need change in America is, I'm a big conspiracy theorist, if you call it. And, Goldman Sachs is a name that is thrown around throughout all these conspiracies. So, even hearing that, knowing that, it just tells me, it helps me understand why so many of the decisions he makes are being made. Right.
Now, Rick in the chat room from Taking Back America says everything in our culture nowadays is a popularity contest. No morals or values are involved anymore.
I agree 100%.
Would you agree with that, JJ?
For sure.
I mean, I talk about this all the time with people. Like schools is another thing. I'll admit I wasted a lot of time in school because I got caught up in, like you said, the fashion show, the popularity contest, and all that dumb stuff that was going on. And I wasted a lot, and this is why, like I'm a big person with trying to educate people, because we live in a world where they throw, and I don't know, you can say this is government, you can say this is whatever, but the fact is there's a lot of distractions out there. There's a lot of things people would rather do than deal with the important stuff, and that's where the popularity contest and stuff comes from. Like think about this. There are people that have run for president that have had good ideas, but most people didn't vote for him because they didn't like the way the name was rolled off their tongue, or something dumb as that, or they didn't like the person's hair. Like, this is actual stuff that happens, and that's once again, this is the media, in my opinion, working alongside with the corrupt politicians to make sure power stays in power by doing these things.
Look at it, and you can relate to it this way. I mean, looking at when you were in high school, look at your student governments. I mean, the class president, he didn't get voted in there because he was smart. I mean, he's because he was popular. I mean, the smart kid, at least around my area, it was never him getting in there because of the brains. It was always the popular kid that got voted president.
See, now, me, I got to put the blame on education. Just because if you look at education in the mid 1800s in the country, a lot of it was the basics, and you learned about history, the founding fathers, and stuff like that. But then once the 20th century came, those principles, those ideals, and just the mere fact of talking politics became taboo by the time the 1970s, 1980s. Came around, and even still today, it's one of the two subjects you never bring up at a dinner table,
or you're not supposed to talk about at work, which I disagree with. We can get into that, actually.
Right, exactly. Well, in other words, the media, education, and the government has made talking about politics taboo, and I don't think it should be taboo. I mean, honestly, I enjoy a great debate, and if someone's got something better, or I'm all ears. But when I see what's going on in our country today, and I look back through our history, and what caused, the events that led up to and caused the first Revolutionary War, those events are happening today. All you have to do is just change a word here or there, and it's almost exactly how history records it.
I agree. You know what?
And